Fears to Fathom is a game series created by Rayll in which the player goes through short horror stories based on true events. Each episode offers a chilling experience for the player and allows them to relive the real-life event. Fears to Fathom has gained some popularity with its retro style and its most recent episode, Ironbark Lookout. That sort of VHS style is what tends to draw people to these games. It almost brings a sense of comfort, even if you are being chased by a vicious killer. I came across the game as I was looking for something to stream, which you should check out my Twitch, by the way, and came across Home Alone. Seeing that the first episode was free, I thought no harm in trying. This led me down the loophole of the Fears to Fathom franchise, and with that I played the other 3 episodes. The 4 episodes out are currently Home Alone, Norwood Hitchhike, Carson House, and Ironbark Lookout. Now, Fears to Fathom isn't a game that relies on jump scares to scare the players. It's a game that messes with the mind and makes you fear the unknown. Whether it's the odd noises being played, the intense music, or the freaky imagery. Every detail is perfectly placed to create each episode of Fears to Fathom. With that being said, I do believe there are some weaker episodes compared to others, but overall good strong titles. Today we are going to be going over each episode of Fears to Fathom, reliving the true stories and sharing my experiences with them. So without further ado, let's hop into the first episode. The first episode, Home Alone, is about a 14-year-old boy named Miles. It's the middle of summer and your parents have left for a work trip, meaning you are all alone. You start off by waking up in your room to your alarm clock ringing in your ear. You wake up at around 8 feeling hungry. You get a couple text messages from your mom and your friend Mason. Mason might be coming over for the night, but it's not yet confirmed. Your mom tells you that she left some lasagna in the fridge and we decided to have that for dinner. Already, the game has set the tone with the sounds that can be heard. Just listen. Before we head downstairs, we take a peek outside our parents' bedroom and notice someone standing outside.
What? What was that? Okay, James.
You head downstairs and eat lasagna while watching TV. This is where we are introduced to the ASMR segment of the game.
He fucking that shit up.
Continuing to watch TV, we notice someone crawling up the stairs. Wonder who that could be. Once we finish our food, Mason tells us that he unfortunately can't head over tonight, which means we are all alone, or at least we should be. You go back to your room and complete your homework. It's now 12:38 a.m. and you finally head to bed. Then you wake up at 1:16 a.m. to get water from downstairs. This is where I had noticed I had become very, very paranoid. The sound cues being played and the intense music really began to make me feel nervous. It's almost like someone is downstairs waiting for you. You are expecting someone to come out.
Hey, it's me, Jerry Starr.
But nothing happens. It's a mind trick that Fears to Fathom executes very well, even down to the ambience of the game. A key feature I had also noticed was the lack of pause, which to me plays a trick on the mind, making you feel as if you are really reliving the story. Once you drink some water, you go back upstairs. Then, as you are about to head to bed, you get a text message from your mom.
No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am. No ma'am.
She sends you a picture of a man outside the door. At this point, we knew we were no longer alone. You slowly make your way downstairs and your mom sends you a message saying that he's been creeping around and that the cops are coming. You check the blinds and that's when you notice him, the intruder.
Hey, it's me.
The red light beaming over the intruder really did add to the fear. I had gotten taken at my first run through of the game because I had opened the door, not actually expecting the door to open.
It's so itchy when I get scared, like... Okay, what do I do? Should I open the door? Imagine.
Hey.
When I had gotten taken from the intruder, I realized that my game closed. This was something I was not expecting from the game, but added to the portrayal of the game. You slowly go back upstairs and hide underneath your bed. Now, this is where things get interesting. As you're hiding underneath the bed, you hear a window break and someone ringing the doorbell a few times. You get a text message from your mom saying that it's Paula at the door. You must now get out of the hiding spot and check the door. You exit the room and hear the floor squeak. Your heart races. And as you are about to head downstairs, the parents' bedroom door slams open. An odd shadow figure is shown, and from the looks of it, it appears to be somebody with their arms positioned to strike. It reminds me of the scene from A Nightmare on Elm Street when Freddy has those long tentacle arms. During all this, the doorbell continues to ring. At this point, you can either choose to check the front door or run back into your room. And so we did just that. We hid. The doorbell continues to ring for some time, and surprisingly, the cops end up coming. And the game ends. We were able to beat the game by hiding, which caught me by surprise. Typically, when it comes to other games, while you are hiding, you would expect the player to have to leave the hiding spot and check the front door, but instead hiding was the right option here. This episode alone intrigued me, and I was eager to start playing the other episodes. By the way, I ended up replaying the episode just to see what was outside, and this happened. Police in here. Police, save me. Please. Police, he's in here.
Oh my god, I have to end the game. You guys, I can't. I'm actually so embarrassed right now.
Yeah, sorry Paula. Home Alone was a perfectly crafted short game. It was different from your traditional horror game. It didn't need cheap jump scares or intense gore to frighten you, instead made you fear what was never there. The only time you actually get jump scared is if you either open the front door or you head downstairs, which I assume a majority of players did not, except me though. Psychological horror games tend to rely on other factors to scare the player. In this game, I had noticed how all the sound cues were perfectly placed together, creating a sense of discomfort. The story chosen also tied the game together. In reality, encounters like this take place all the time in the real world. Home invasions can take place anywhere, including your own home. So the idea of someone being somewhere so comfortable and having your own space invaded isn't the most fascinating idea. When you play lots of horror games and live in the real world, you come to the realization that the real world is much more scarier than the game you're playing at home. Anyway, so now let's move on to the second episode, Norwood Hitchhike. The second episode, Norwood Hitchhike, is about a 19-year-old named Holly Gardner who was on a drive home and runs into some issues. She ends up staying at a motel and ends up realizing soon that staying there was a mistake. The playtime for this episode is 40 minutes. Now, because this is the second episode, I had been looking forward to checking this one out. I knew going into this game that this episode was much more interactive than the first one and a bit longer as well. Now, in this episode, you start off driving home after attending a gaming event. Your dad and Aiden, the friend you met at the convention, begin to text you on the way home. You let them know that traffic is bad and that you will have to reroute. On the way, you stop at a gas station to get some gas. As I stepped into the gas station, I noticed there were people inside. A gas station worker and this random guy. He doesn't seem to be very friendly either. I went over to the vending machine and was able to get a drink, which says increases your sprint speed. At first glance, I thought that these would stack, so I drank endlessly and ate all the vending machine snacks, only for it to not. It just slightly increases your sprint speed. Making the gas station a mess was also entertaining. When you interact with the gas station employee, we engage in small talk, and he tells you about a Norwood Valley monster and how the monster would tear people up and hang them from trees. Interesting. Anyways, Then, as you are about to leave, he mentions that if you see a woman in a white or blue gown, do not give her a ride. He says that she died in a car accident during prom night and now is looking for revenge. He leaves a message making it clear to never pick up a hitchhiker under any circumstances. As you head back to the car, a suspicious white van can be seen. Someone walks towards the van and drives off.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
During that, your mom sends you a message saying that we need dog food, so we go back into the store, grab the dog food, and on the way we go. You continue for a lengthy drive and run into a blockage on the road. During that drive, I anticipated something to happen, when in reality it's all a part of the psychological scare. Even when you are reaching the roadblock, these little stumps of wood can be seen as people. Or at least I thought they looked like people. I don't know. You get out the car and move the logs, and you realize your car is no longer starting. Now, here we are, stranded. No car, no phone, in the middle of nowhere. We get back inside the car and just wait. Then, we finally see headlights in the distance. Could it be our glimpse of hope, the person who saves us from the... After waiting for some while, someone finally comes by and stops. It ends up being the same guy we saw at the gas station. We politely ask him for a ride, and now we're getting a ride from a random stranger. We throw our stuff in his car, and on the road we go. He tells us that his name is Jason, and we talk to him about what the guy at the gas station told us, the supposed monster he tells travelers to be cautious about. He has never seen the monster, he says, but there are some things that relate to the idea of the monster, like the car breaking down. A piece of advice he tells us: don't bother them and they won't bother you. Jason drops us off at the nearest motel and he drives off. He surprisingly did not kidnap us, so that's good. We checked in with a very suspicious guy and we tell him about our car. He tells us that Tommy will take care of it and reminds us to not disturb the people around us. I looked around the area just to scan and was able to find my room. We walk into our luxurious room and then what happens? But I'm not gonna check because if the guy said people aren't friendly, the people aren't friendly, and I should take his word. I'm not gonna. We find someone in the bathroom. This is Tommy. He tells us that he works there and he was doing room service. While Tommy finishes our room, we go ahead and move our items in. Once we move all our stuff into our room, he tells us that he will get our car for us, also letting us know that the phone service does not work, which sounds like a recipe for disaster. We hop into bed and get cozy for the night. But then, as you look over to your left, you notice someone standing at the window. Almost unnoticeable at first, it seemed to be a figure looking over you. Feeling anxious, you decided to get some coffee to help with your anxiety. I decided to get the me espresso, and as we walk back to our room, we are hit with darkness. You gain consciousness and your vision becomes slightly distorted. You start to hear odd noises. Walking back was a challenge since everything was inverted. Once you walk back to your room, you knock out on your bed. You wake up at 3:18 a.m. to the phone ringing, and you find out that you were sedated. As you wake up, you also notice someone sneaking into your closet. We of course make sure to avoid the closet. The hotel owner then comes knocking on your door saying that there have been some noise complaints coming from your room. He mentions that your eyes are red, in which you explain to him the coffee machine had sedated you. He then proceeds to say that there is no coffee machine. You lead him to where the coffee machine is located, and as you take him, you notice the man who was in your room sneaking out. Once you reach the coffee machine, surprise, surprise, no longer there. The motel owner, now irritated, tells you to go back to your room and take the medication located in your room. You take the medication and lay back in your bed. Something didn't feel right, so we got up out of bed and noticed a camera flash coming in. We then noticed the man walking towards the door. Someone then begins to mumble from what seems to be outside the door. The person claims to be needing help and implies that you open the door. Now, on my first playthrough, I thought opening the door was the right choice, but soon later figured out it was the wrong choice since I noticed him waiting for me.
Oh my god.
Things didn't go well that night.
Back the fuck up, and I'ma do you like Will Smith.
After constantly denying and ignoring them, the person begins to get aggressive and bangs on the door. You run to hide in your closet, making sure to be as quiet as possible. This area is mic sensitive, and as we peek through the closet, he breaks in. As the intruder checks the bathroom, the hotel owner came in just in time to knock the guy out.
And I'ma do you like Will Smith.
The manager decided to not get the police involved because he wanted to protect the motel's reputation. We believe that the guy could have been part of a drug ring or a cult. Then the car arrived and you were able to head home. Looking at it now, the whole night we had been targeted. From the moment at the gas station to our car breaking down. Everything that night was a setup. I was doing some research about the episode on the Fears to Fathom wiki page and found out more about the story. Apparently that night, Holly was being targeted by 2 men, not 1. The man saw Holly at the gaming convention and was targeting her the whole night. We encountered the first stalker who looked through the window, then the second one who broke into Holly's room, which means that if there were 2 stalkers that night, only 1 was caught, and even then, no charges were filed against the stalker who had been caught. This leads me to believe that the motel owner must have known about what was going on. Not calling the cops after Holly was in danger was a dead giveaway. Tactics like this are done all the time. People will pose as someone needing help and try to lure an innocent person in. Whether it's someone knocking on your door asking for help or a hitchhiker asking for a ride, it's always important to be cautious about your surroundings. Cases like this are not uncommon, which is what makes this episode frightening. Now, I did enjoy this episode. The interactive features included, like driving the car or which coffee to drink, was nice to see. The story was properly portrayed and executed well. But if we were to compare both episodes, this one was a letdown for me. I had high hopes for the second episode, being that the first one impressed me very much. Now, in no way am I saying this episode is bad. I believe if somebody were to blindly go into this episode, it would still be a good scare. I just had expected a little more was all. But of course, this is just my opinion. Now, with that being said, it's time we dive into the third episode, Carson House.
We have extracted a great amount of berries.
Shut up, Boris. Nobody cares.
The third episode, Carson's House, is about an 18-year-old named Noah Baker who is house sitting. Now, this episode is much more interactive than the previous episodes, allowing you to use security cameras, use the computer, and even use the toilet. Which is my favorite feature, by the way. I had been looking forward to playing this episode because of the location and the name. It had reminded me of the first episode, which I of course was a big fan of. Now this episode is interesting, as to me it gives more backstory to the characters. The game starts off with you picking up a side job for the weekend. You watch over the house, doing simple chores for the night. The man of the house is a COO at a local media company who is friends with your father. You begin in a laundromat with slightly distorted vision. Looking around, I enjoyed the ambience of the area. It was oddly comforting. It reminded me of those liminal spaces, empty but in a way calming. This is until we encounter this long, ominous walkway, which seems to be like a good cue for a chase scene. You continue along and you begin to run with your vision becoming more distorted. We run until we encounter this random man who blurts out bleach. He asks you where the bleach is, insisting on us providing him with bleach. Eventually, your dad begins to wake you up from the dream and you arrive at the location. Your father tells you where Roy, the owner of the house, hides his keys. He drives off and you carry your math notebook along with you and locate the hidden key in the backyard. You also encounter this cute dog. Once you get in the house, we snoop around the entire house. Roy begins to text us, thanking us for house sitting and looking over his dog Zeke, who we met outside. We are also introduced to Evelyn, who appears to be dating our protagonist. Roy asks us to feed Zeke and tells us that the dog food is located in the basement. How convenient. We head on down and realize the basement was too dark. Roy sends us a message apologizing for the dim lights and tells us to grab the flashlight from the storage room. Now with this flashlight, we were able to grab the dog food. Once we pop that open, we head back to feed Zeke. Roy sends you a message saying that his computer has been acting weird and to see if you can fix it. We head upstairs, entering the security room and log onto his computer. Now on this computer, we go through and install an antivirus. The computer comes with a lot of fun different games, including this one called Kanito Pet. It's a fun little computer companion that follows you around. Nothing serious. Anyways, once the antivirus is done installing, then you can finally... After the antivirus is downloaded, we now have access to the security cameras. From here, we can see all the focal points of the house, also equipped with night vision as well. After that, Roy thanks us and Evelyn sends us a message asking us to watch Cooking with Jeffrey, so we head downstairs to watch. Of course, in good Fears to Fathom fashion, the show is some creepy, odd high trip.
Jeffrey. I'm Jeffrey, and today we are cooking.
Why they watch this, I have no idea. But either way, Roy ends up asking us to get some groceries and shoots us a list. We grab the cash from his bedside dresser, get on the bike outside, and bike our way to the store.
We're biking on fair with no handlebars. This is real risky.
Once arriving at Nux, we encounter a few people. First, this grandma who tells us that she's looking for some mustard. We decide to do a good deed for the day and tell her that there's no more left, even though there is. As we go around, we encounter Turner and Andy, students who go to school with Noah. They tell us about Noah's ex-girlfriend, Kara, coming in and buying a bunch of cans. We catch up with them, having a productive conversation about MILF energy.
Shut your fucking mouth, bitch!
Turner was someone who we didn't really get along with, and he was mainly known for his pranks that he would pull. We carry on and continue grabbing our groceries. Once we grabbed our groceries, we headed back home. We put the groceries in the kitchen and now head back upstairs to finally start our homework. But as we enter the security room, Andy sends us a message asking us to search up Roy Carson divorce. Logging onto the computer, we look up the Roy Carson divorce, and we find out that Roy has been receiving death threats and that people have been knocking on his front door to confront him after his public divorce with Alyssa, his ex-wife. Then, as we were reading the article, we hear a ring at the door. Of course, we decide to check the security cameras, and we see someone standing at the front door. We go downstairs to check who it is, and he claims that a delivery was made for a medium-sized pizza by the name of Roy Carson. Now, in my head, I'm thinking to myself, you never open the door in a situation like this, judging from the previous encounters. But once time passes, it seems as if that's your only option left. Once gaining enough courage to open the door, you're actually not met with death, instead a very precious smile. He hands us our pizza and asks us an interesting question. He asks if he can stay inside the house until the rain is over. Interesting. We reject him and he runs off to his car. Roy afterwards sends us a message confirming that the pizza was actually meant to be delivered to us. We get back to watching our show, and while watching the TV, the doorbell rings again. We check out who it could be and are left with no answer. We decide to open the door and are left with a bouquet of flowers. We are left unsure what to make of it.
Come on down. Look at me. I'm the toilet man. Come over here. I'm the toilet man.
That doesn't make no sense.
I'm the toilet man. Come over here.
My man.
While heading to the security room, you get a message from an unknown sender asking, "Hey, how are you? And what did you have for dinner?" You dismiss the message as an odd coincidence and begin to do your homework. Time passes by and it's now 1:36 a.m. and the power randomly goes out. You also notice that the unknown sender had been sending you messages, asking why we are ignoring them and that we are being immature. You believe it must have been Turner doing another prank. After all, he is known for pulling pranks. We come to the conclusion, because both Turner and Andy had been the only ones knowing that we were house sitting, that it had to have been them. We go outside to turn the power back on and notice Zeke barking by the door. Once turned on, we notice the power had been intentionally turned off. We assume it's Turner and begin to get irritated, texting the unknown sender telling them to stop messing with us. We get back to work feeling uncertain about the situation, but then we hear something downstairs. We check the camera and see that the oven was turned on, even though we never turned it on. We go downstairs to turn the oven off, and in this moment, we believe Turner is in the house with us. We confront Andy, texting him to let Turner know to quit messing with us. Then he texts us back, saying that Turner is with him. What a shocker. You immediately run to the security cameras, and while skimming through each one,
is the fact that these characters
you then notice her. An intruder had broken into the house and is carrying a knife in hand. She checks all the rooms, turning the TV on in one of them, then eventually reaches the room we are in. Thankfully, she wasn't able to get in due to the door being blocked off. She calls out our name and explains that she misses us and that the relationship between them can be fixed. Assuming this is Noah's ex-girlfriend, we can safely assume that this is Kara. Kara, desperately wanting to talk, then yells, saying that we deserve a second chance. Threatening to call the cops, she replies saying, "Do it and I'll kill you both." She then proceeds to say, "If I can't have you, then no one can." Now, the first time I played, my smart plan was to hide in the corner of the room, hoping she wouldn't notice me. It worked for a little bit, but then she found me as I tried to sneak past her.
She get money, her body tea, she's super thick, she's super pretty.
Anyways, we sneak over to the laundry room before she turns the corner and hide as she walks inside the room we were previously in.
Noah.
We wait for the right moment, then begin to run off. Noah ran over to his father's house and they had called the cops. When the cops arrived, nobody had been there, but she was soon arrested. Noah and Kara met on a dating site, and 2 months into the relationship, she had began doing meth. Noah tried to help Kara through her addiction, but eventually they broke up. Kara tried convincing the cops that she didn't intend on harming Noah that night, but the cops had reviewed the footage from the moment she entered the house to when she grabbed the kitchen knife, proving her intentions were to harm Noah. Noah says that that night, nothing had been stolen, meaning that she only had one true intention. Kara was heavily under the influence that night of the break and was arrested for a very long time. And that, everybody, is episode 3, Carson's House. Now, this episode I was very pleased with. Compared to the previous episode, Norwood Hitchhike, this one, in my opinion, was better. But I have to say, I still think that Home Alone is still superior. Sorry. Of course, same as the previous episode, this was an amazing episode, but if we were to compare them all, episode 1 takes my first place. Also, after I had rewatched the episode, I had also wondered if the beginning had anything to do with the game, or if it was just nothing. I believe that it's somewhat of a full circle moment. Noah had dreamt about a laundromat in the start of the episode, and near the end, he had to hide in a laundry room, which had ended up saving his life. So maybe they are connected, who knows? Either way, this episode was an enjoyable play, much more interactive, and each episode seemed to be getting more and more features, which means that episode 4 must be all things combined, right? Well, you're going to want to pack your bags for this one and make sure to pack only necessities for this trip, because we, everybody, are going to the woods. The 4th episode, Ironbark Lookout, is about a 24-year-old named Jack Nelson, a fire lookout who meets some odd people in the woods. Now, this is the longest episode with a playtime of 2 hours. The episode starts off by giving some background to the story. Jack claims that this was one of his scariest experiences ever. He worked as a park ranger in a state park and would often be stationed in large, dense forests. Jack made enough money to get by and was able to purchase his RV. He was transferred to another post due to some official circumstances, entailing on a 2-hour drive to the location. We start in the RV, driving to the new outpost. You get a text message from Kayla, who appears to be dating Jack. We are also introduced to Mitch. He's from Ironbark and seems to be helping Jack get situated at his new station. Continuing the drive, I must say that the views in this episode are astonishing. I had gotten out the van a few times just to take a couple shots to appreciate the effort that was put into this episode. Kayla suggests to us that we check out this diner on the way. Once we arrive at the diner, we park the RV out front. But before we headed inside, I had interacted with this guy who was aggressively eating his burger.
Number 15, Burger King foot lettuce.
He tells us about how 3 kids had gone missing in the park we were headed towards. Nobody knows what happened to the kids, but rumors have it a creature had captured them. Apparently, it's common that people go missing in those woods and that some people don't even come back. He proceeds to continue to chow down his burger, and we head inside the diner. I interacted with some interesting people as well. They didn't tell us much, just casual conversation. I sat down and ordered my food, and I do have to say I did enjoy the interactive options you have when choosing what to order. It made it seem more fun, even though the choices don't impact the gameplay. We eat our meal, and we enjoy those good old Fierce to Fathom eating sounds. We leave a generous tip, and back on the road we go. It's now 8:02 p.m. and we arrive at the location. Huh, seems like no one is around. This is Billy, the park ranger. He helps us check in and lends us the keys to Tower 11, which is where we will be staying. Looking around, we were able to see the flyers of the kids who had gone missing at the park. He warns us about not traveling too far because of bobcats and bears. Yeah, Billy, I'm sure bobcats and bears are the concern here. It's now 11:32 p.m. and you arrive to your tower after a long hike. You turn on the power and enter your cozy room. We remembered to check in, so we log onto the computer. Of course, I snooped around and found these wonky videos. I also found this game called Plague, which is honestly cool to play. Anyway, our radio eventually goes off and we encounter Connor, who is on Tower 12. He introduces himself and suggests that we start a fire. We don't have any firewood in our room, so we have to go down to the storage room to grab some. We grab all the materials needed: wood, gas, matches, and fire. After that, we report for the night by checking the wind speed, the temperature, and the weather. We type up all our information to make our report for the night. Once completed, Connor signs off and we head to bed. We wake up at 3:26 a.m. to the radio going off. We couldn't understand what was being said, it was just static coming from the radio. Brushing it off, we go pee, but not in the porta potty. Off the balcony. After doing that, we look off into the distance and notice someone in the woods beaming their light towards us. Once we notice them, they suspiciously run off into the woods. Interesting. We turn off the lights and head back to bed. It's now morning time and we're sipping on some good old coffee looking at this marvelous view. This is another one of those moments where you can really appreciate the effort that's put into the game. We take a couple pictures of the view, then Connor calls us on the radio and tells us that there is smoke up north, potentially caused by some campers who are in a non-registered area. He wants us to check it out and report back. Grabbing our bear spray and flashlight, we hike the trail there. It's now 8:37 p.m. and we have arrived at the campsite. While walking in, we can hear in the distance to what appears to sound like a man screaming. Once we arrived, our text messages had sent through, meaning we were reconnected to the internet. Whilst checking the messages, I began to hear whistling deep in the forest. We call out to whoever is there.
You're a liar, a cheater, a sinner, and a homo.
But nobody responded. Putting out the fire, we head back to our tower with an uncertain feeling. Something at this point felt off. I mean, yeah, it would. We report to Connor about the vacant campsite we found, and he goes off saying that this was a common occurrence, and that this was the third time this month that this has happened. After he tells us that campers have been flocking to the area because of the rumors being spread, and how 3 kids had went missing while hiking with their families and people believed that entities had taken them, he let us know that that was the reason why Mitch had left the tower. Connor then says that he is contacting the authorities and will keep us updated. After that, we complete our nightly report, gathering the wind speed, temperature, and weather. Once finished, we began to cook Kayla's recipe that she had sent us. Not gonna lie, this part was fun. After making a complete mess, we put our casserole in the oven to cook. Connor then calls us back and lets us know that the people have been reported to the authorities. Casserole is then ready to eat. We sit on the side of our bed and enjoy our meal while staring at the wall, chewing very, very loudly. Once finished, we head down to the storage room to grab some wood. While grabbing wood, we hear the same whistling again. Looking out the windows, though, we couldn't really see anything. Interesting. We run back up to the tower and light our fire, close our boards, and head to bed. At 2:27 a.m., we were awoken by the same whistling we heard. Looking around, we notice a shadowy figure being displayed on the wall. And we immediately get up. Hiding underneath the bed seemed like the best option. After waiting a second, we opened the door and noticed a skull with candles lit underneath. We decided to contact Connor immediately and tell him about what we saw. He brushed it off as kids pranking us, and after finally convincing him, he tells us that he will send someone tomorrow to check in. He signs off and we somehow are able to head to bed for the night. It's 8:34 p.m. and we begin to do some scanning of the area with our binoculars. We then notice a flare being shot up into the sky. We head back inside and someone begins to ask for help on the radio.
Hello? Is anyone there? I need help!
Lost Hiker explains that he lost track of time and cannot remember his trail back to his truck. He explains what he has on him and what he is wearing. He tells us the direction that he is headed towards and then reaches a trail intersection. He says that he needs help figuring out whether to head left or right.
All right? Yes. No, you are all left.
Checking the map, we tell him to turn
left.
I couldn't have trusted myself with this decision.
He then proceeds to tell us that he hears us and that he hears our whistling.
I hear you. I hear your whistles. What?
We immediately tell him that it's not us, and he proceeds to say that he sees us behind him. Then, mid-sentence, we hear a knock on our door.
Can I help you, bitch?
It's just Billy, the park ranger. He came here to give us our tower supplies. He asks what we were doing up north when we went to examine the campsite, in which he proceeds to tell us that we should not be traveling there and to avoid that area because of the bobcats and bears. Yeah, the bobcats and bears. We then mentioned the skull to him, asking if we had taken a picture. We surprisingly did not take a picture, so he tells us that we shouldn't dwell on the past and to keep things pushing. Billy then heads off and we do our report for the night, checking wind, temperature, and weather, the whole routine. After a long day of work, we heat up our delicious casserole in the microwave and once again eat in our bed. Then we go down to get some wood from the storage room and... Okay. This guy appears. My first encounter with him made my heart rate go off the charts.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
He claims to be a worker who was doing some maintenance, and he goes by the name of Silas. Silas continues to say some cryptic things like nature has its own plans no matter how hard we control it, and disasters are just another form of cleansing. Silas then says goodbye, but while saying goodbye, he mentions our name, even though we never mentioned our name. Okay. He then slithers back into the woods and we can finally start our fire. Connor then proceeds to question where we have been, and we mention that we ran into Silas. He tells us that the radio tower has been out of service and was closed down years ago. Connor brushed it off as someone playing a prank on us, and tells us to take his information and take a photo of the guy, since it's against park guidelines to disguise as a staff member. Connor signs off and we head to bed. Jack at this point feels uneasy, but claims that everything he's gone through wasn't enough to cause an alarm for him. It's 9:18 p.m. Connor is on the radio telling us about a new computer update we got, which is meant to keep people out from snooping. We go to update our computer and type up some codes, and as soon as it's done updating, the lights go out. We head down to grab some gasoline and start up the generator. Before we head back up, we take a pee in the correct spot this time. Hey look, the area is mic activated. I wonder if we might be using this later on.
2 hours later.
One week passes by, and during that time, Jack had covered Connor's area for the past 2 days. He mentions that the only time he would talk was when he would check in with Connor or to himself. It's now 2:34 a.m., and we wake up due to Connor calling out our name. Connor tells us that he's been working on his generator and that he happened to catch smoke coming from the west. We grab our binoculars, and as we head out, he lets us know that he's tired and he's going to let us handle this one. All on our own. From a distance, we can see what seems to be some sort of fireplace. And once we pull out the binoculars and we get closer and closer, we can see what seems to be a cult, all wearing black robes. We immediately pull out our camera to capture this as evidence. And then, of course, we left the flash on. They instantly notice the flash, and we can see one of the cult members rushing to our tower. We quickly hide underneath our bed, making sure we don't make a peep.
Please stop! Stop!
Once the coast is clear, the only logical decision was to run.
Pull up, house!
We hear his footsteps run behind us as we sprint for our lives and conveniently hide in the porta potty. We got a bit nervous, so we took a pee first. Then, as the man walks away to the storage room, we make a run for it. Reaching the station, we noticed that the door was locked. But then right behind us, the cult member was chasing us at full speed. Now sprinting for our lives, we run to the RV as quickly as possible, and we were able to thankfully make it in just on time. Jack hit the gas and drove to the nearest ranger cabin and radioed in to alert the HQ. The next morning, there was nothing found, no traces of anybody, and nobody ever believed Jack's story. People thought it was due to isolation, causing him to see things. Mitch even brushed it off and said, just stick to looking out for fires. Many years have passed since the event, but the memories still feel vivid for Jack. His own family didn't even believe his story. He says that the forest can become a haven for illegal activities to go on, and he wants his story to be a message to always be safe when entering any forest. Then the episode ends. This episode was definitely entertaining. It had storyline, locations, good ambience, and nice interactive portions. Ironbark had many beautiful cinematic moments in the game, which I admire. Do I think it's the best episode? Not quite. Ironbark, although having positive qualities, I think felt overall lackluster. Throughout my playthrough, I couldn't help but become bored at some moments. With the episode being long, it just didn't have enough scare factor to the game. It did have good jump scares, but the episode just felt dragged out. That being said, do I think it was a bad episode? Of course not. Like the previous episodes, they were all fun to play. I just had expected something more because of how much I enjoyed the first episode, Home Alone. I began to question why I favor the first episode the most, and came to the conclusion that it's because I had entered the game blindly. Going into the first episode, I had no clue what to expect, and on top of that, the game was also under 20 minutes. I believe that the duration of the game made a difference because within a short span of time, it gives you all the psychological mind tricks the best. Think about it, within the first 10 minutes of the game, you are already met with such an unsettling vibe. The loud car noises, the man outside, the TV, the ambience, everything was set perfectly in place. I think that after playing each episode more and more, you pick up on a lot of the same recycled tricks the game plays. Some of the tricks worked for me and others didn't, but maybe I feel this way because I had played all the episodes within a week, causing me to pick up on the formula. Needless to say, of course, this is simply my personal opinion. Maybe you thought that Ironbark was terrifying and that it's the best, or maybe you think Carson's House was the best. Those are all valid opinions to me. Now, if we were to compare all the episodes, my personal list would be Home Alone, of course, coming in first, Carson House in second, Norwood Hitchhike in third, and Ironbark in fourth. But let's reserve one spot open, because there's one more episode we have yet to play. And that, everybody, would be episode 5, Woodbury Gateway. This episode was just recently announced April 26. The Steam page went live and you can actually go wishlist the game now. It says here the story is about Sydney Harper, a 23-year-old working at a consulting firm, plans a weekend getaway to a Woodbury rental with her college friends. Little did she know what was about to unfold during their stay. Judging from the pictures, I can already tell that I am going to enjoy this episode. The visuals are stunning. This episode is said to be releasing midsummer this year, and is the final episode of the season, meaning we could be getting more seasons later down the line. But when the episode comes out, I am definitely going to check it out. I honestly have high hopes for this episode, seeing that all the previous episodes seem to have more and more improvements, meaning that the final episode must be top tier. Well, I think that's it. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe to support me. I also stream on Twitch playing a variety of games, so feel free to drop a follow on there as well. I would of course really appreciate it. The rest of my socials are linked down below, but if you're too lazy, all my handles are SAPCIIO, SAPCIO. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching, and comment down below your thoughts. Do you have a favorite episode, or do you hate them all? I'm curious. And yeah, thank you guys for everything. Goodbye.